Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is kind of weird. I'm recording in a slightly new setup. I've got some more new hair and I am recording on a new camera with a viewfinder that is above me, so if I keep looking into the viewfinder, that is why. So today I am going to be talking about the books that I read in September. September was a bit of a weird reading month for me. I didn't read as much as I normally read because I was starting a new job, adjusting to a new lifestyle, that sort of thing. However, I did manage to read 4 things this month, so let's get into it. So the first book that I read this month was On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, and I rated this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas last year and I absolutely loved it, and this didn't quite live up to On the Come Up. However, it was an amazing, engaging, interesting story. This follows 16-year-old Brie, who wants to become a young rapper, and she lives in an estate kind of in America that's got a certain reputation. And it's about her experiencing the social issues that kind of happen in that area while trying to follow her dreams of becoming a rapper, also kind of being 16 and trying to learn what that is all about. I absolutely loved this. I loved all the characters in this story. I thought Brie was so feisty, imaginative. You were rooting for her for the entire time. I flew through this. I absolutely loved it. Angie Thomas she did it again. Like, it was a memorable story. I felt like all of these people were real. It does also have some crossover with The Hate You Give because the kind of like the complex where this is based, I think, is the same place as The Hate You Give, and you hear kind of echoes of that in the story. However, it's just amazing. It's quite heartfelt as well, and you kind of really root for these characters and you kind of really plead for the issues that they're experiencing. So the next book I listened to on audiobook, and it was Every Heart a Doorway by Sean and Maguire. And this followed a gang of children kind of in a children's home where they are trying to recover from going into different lands. That's as much as I can get. The story was quite confusing. It's quite a complex setting to explain. It was very, very unique. I have never experienced anything like that ever before, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the setting and the way it was for children who had kind of gone into different worlds, and the world itself was really, really engaging. I did find it a little bit confusing at times. However, I think that was because I was listening to it on audiobook when I was driving, and I kind of get lost when I'm driving. But however, I did really love the mystery element of the story. I felt like, although it had this immersive world as well, there was a real key mystery element of the story that I really, really enjoyed. And I rated this, I think, 4.5 out of 5 stars, maybe 4 out of 5 stars. I will definitely be carrying on to listen to the rest of the books in the series. They're on Scribd, so I am definitely going to be picking those up. Next 2 books I read were for the Contemporary-a-thon, which I just happened to vlog. And the first book I listened to was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Kang. And I absolutely loved this story. It follows Stella, who is an econometrician who is also autistic. And Stella is a little bit unlucky in love, and she hires an escort to help her get better at sex. And kind of things unravel, and her and this escort tend to get quite close, and he becomes her practice boyfriend, and obviously they fall in love. I really, really loved this story. I actually found out that the author of this story is autistic, so it is own voices, which is amazing. I kind of felt like the way she described Stella's autism was a way that, not that we could relate, but we could kind of understand how it would feel to be autistic, the way she described it, which was amazing. I loved the characters of Stella and Michael's family. They were believable. The love story, although it was predictable because you know what's going to happen in the end, it was so enjoyable and it was so sweet. There were some very rampant. Enjoyed that. This is definitely not a book for under 18s. However, I really enjoyed it. I am not really a regular reader of romance, so yeah, but I really enjoyed it and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And the final book that I read this month was Meat Market by Juno Dawson, which I rated 5 out of 5 stars. And this follows Jenna, who is scouted at Thorpe Park by a model scout, and she kind of gets thrust into the model world, and how that is a very manipulative, abusive, horrible place to be. And it's about her experiencing that and kind of the stress that that has on her, how it impacts her personal relationships, but also some of the problems and the cruelty that happens to models that work in this industry. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Juno Dawson knocked it out of the park again with her hard-hitting stories. I absolutely loved this. I loved all the characters. She has this thing, Juno Dawson, of creating like the most amazing side characters, and I really, really enjoyed that. I rated this, as I said, 5 out of 5 stars, and I don't have many Juno Dawson books left, so she needs to get on and write more books because I really need more. It's Lauren from the future. So I also read another book this month, and that was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which I read with my friends Lizzie and Lisa. I also read another book this month. However, when I was filming this video, I forgot. So I also listened to The Handmaid's Tale on audiobook by Margaret Atwood, kind of in preparation for Testaments to be released. I read it with Lizzie and Lisa, my good friends, in our little buddy read group, and this book was okay. I always feel like this book is super overhyped. I don't really feel like it lived up to the hype. For those who don't know, The Handmaid's Tale is set in a apocalyptic, kind of post-apocalyptic society, and certain women are forced to become handmaids, where their bodies are basically used to produce babies for the upper levels of society. This book, I feel like, has a lot of kind of problems in it. Some of it are the book's merits, like for example Offred being kind of an unreliable narrator. Her perspective is kind of warped. I often think that this is actually one of the only books where I feel like multiple perspectives would actually be a good thing. However, this book, I listened to the Elizabeth Moss version, and I really enjoyed the way that she read the book. She read it out really well. It was engaging. She was a good narrator. But I ultimately rated this book 3 stars, which is what I rated it originally when I first read it when I was 16. Just because parts of the story kind of move slow. This book doesn't really have a massive plot. It just explores her experience of this society and how she got to this point. My favourite parts in the story are where Offred is kind of talking about the moment when women's credit cards get shut down. The moment the law suddenly changes so that she can't work any longer. I find that those bits of the stories were super engaging. However, there are some bits where I kind of feel like the pacing is slow and the pacing is off. I also feel like we never get a conclusive ending. Maybe Margaret Atwood did that on purpose because she's now released a sort of sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, even though it's set quite a lot later. And obviously the book has received a lot of hype and a lot of popularity recently because of the TV series. Watch the first series. I feel like it's kind of shocking. It's kind of good. It's pretty accurate to the book. However, I didn't really plan to watch the rest of the series. Can't really be bothered, to be honest. This book was okay. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. I feel like it kind of has aged pretty badly, and the dystopian genre has kind of developed since Margaret Atwood wrote it in the 80s. I think the only really scary element of the story was that some of these things have come true, and especially with like the recent abortion bans in some states in America, you can kind of see how women's bodies are being dictated. And the message that's kind of at the core of The Handmaid's Tale is actually scarily true in society. And that's what makes it a good book. And I feel like it will just be a modern classic and kind of stay on all reading lists until the future. So I reread it in preparation for the Testaments. It was alright. I recommend the audiobook. At the end of the audiobook there's actually some extra bits where there is like a mock paper from a pretend conference about the Gilead regime, and that was really, really interesting, and I really, really enjoyed it. So mediocre. So that is quite a short wrap up, but that wraps up everything that I read in September. Let me know in the comments down below what you read in September, and let me know what you're planning to read in October, ready for the spooky month. So until next time, I will see you again soon. Goodbye.